right, we're out in the middle of the Central Oregon wilderness, and we've got two bikes here. We've got my 2018 KTM 350 EXC-F and Jaren's FE350, which is the Husqvarna version. So what we're going to do today is we are going to switch bikes and see how that goes.
As you guys know, these bikes are pretty much identical. There are a few things, linkage on my bike and the PDS on Alex's bike that are different, Brembo versus Magura. There's some subtle differences to the bike.
Our forks are different. They're pretty much the same fork. Jaren's does everything mine does except has preload adjustment. The Husky has carbon composite subframe, which this is all just an aluminum frame.
So knowing those differences, we're gonna swap bikes and see how these bikes feel to one another. Both bikes, performance-wise, are stock. The only differences are tires. We got rid of the street and dirt purpose tires for more dirt-oriented tires on these bikes, which make a huge difference.
You can look on a spreadsheet the differences of these bikes, but we're here to just kind of figure out if there are really any main differences that we feel, and just we'll note those to you guys when we're finished.
If you want to see more of each bike, we have individual reviews on each bike on our channel, so you guys should go check those out too.
All right, we're gonna swap bikes and hit the dirt and report back to you here soon.
All right, I don't know about you, but that was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed riding your bike, even though they're so identical in a lot of ways. There was just something about it, riding it. It had a different feel to it, and I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was super fun trading, and just seeing. There's definitely some things that are personal preference,
like tires and kind of some of the maybe where our levers are and things like that are a little bit different.
Bar height I think is a little different too, but other than that, the bikes seem extremely similar, with very subtle differences that we could notice for sure, but it's
they're
pretty
almost,
cool.
The differences were almost indescribable. I don't know, it's kind of like, it wasn't necessarily good or bad difference, it was just kind of like different. Even though the bikes are so close together, I think you can definitely feel the difference in suspension on the KTM, but I can't really describe what that difference is. It didn't like feel noticeably different in the rocks or anything tight, It was a little bit more firm, but that may just be kind of how his suspension is set up in terms of clickers. Mine's mostly stock from the factory. I know you played around with yours for a little bit, but no, I thoroughly enjoyed riding yours.
Yeah, I didn't notice too much of a difference between the linkage and the PDS shock on the KTM. I think, if anything, it felt that the linkage felt like, on a couple of the little rock drops, I felt like it felt softer, but then while riding quickly down something, like down just like a road, if we're going fast and you hit some bumps, the linkage felt stiffer. So I think that's probably how linkage works. But other than that though, I couldn't really feel like too much of a difference between the suspension overall. Power-wise, the bikes are pretty identical. I felt that the Husky, just for whatever reason, I can't explain it. I'm not really sure exactly like why, or even if it's just in my head, but the power felt smoother on the Husky. Like it didn't feel, I don't know, it's hard to describe. I just felt like the throttle control, like I just felt like it felt more linear than the KTM, but it wasn't necessarily like that much of a difference. It was just a very subtle difference I noticed.
I feel like one of the first things I noticed jumping on your bike was that it felt much easier to wheelie, and I don't know if that's the PDS versus the linkage or anything else, but it definitely felt more able to get the front up with a flick of the throttle as compared to mine, and maybe I'm just used to how mine is, but that's kind of one of the things that I felt like your bike, it was a little more maybe alive feeling, I guess. Maybe, I don't know if that you can attribute that to the linkage or you know, different PSI on the tires or anything like that, or if it was just in my head being on a new bike.
Right, and yeah, and that's the same thing I kind of felt with turns too. Turning on a turn that wasn't necessarily banked, I just felt like I was more on the ground, like connected to the ground more. And I don't know if that could just be Jaren's tire on the Husky is a little fatter in the rear, and that could just be that, but I think it could also be the suspension a little bit. But other than that, I think the bikes, it's crazy how similar they actually are, just in every other way.
The real question though is, do you regret buying the KTM?
Absolutely not. No, I just think that the bikes are so similar that there's not anything that's like necessarily better on either of them that would be I guess a deciding factor. Really what it comes down to is if your preference is linkage or PDS, or I know that with the Husky, as we mentioned, the front suspension comes with a preload adjustment. Yeah. But other than that, it's like take your pick and your favorite color.
Yeah,
so that's kind of
favorite. Yeah, favorite color, whatever dealer's closer to you. I mean, the differences are so subtle. You can't go wrong with either one. I like what I have, and if I'd be happy flipping a coin and, you know, heads KTM, tails Husky. It's like there's really no right or wrong answer when it comes to choosing either of these bikes, and I think we should probably switch more often. And
yeah, I mean, they rode so similar, and it was just really fun getting on Jaren's bike and trying to look for those subtle differences and trying to figure out, yeah, is this the tire? Is this the taller bars? Like, why does this feel this way? And
right.
I think that we'll have to ride each other's bikes more just to figure those things out. But yeah, so, you know, overall, I think that was a pretty fun experiment. Again, they're very similar. If you have any questions that are kind of more specific to what you're thinking, just let us know in the comments and we'll try and get back to you.
Yeah, and again, check out our individual reviews on these bikes as well, as we kind of go over them a little closer, a little bit more in depth. Those are some longer videos. So I don't know about you, man, but I'm ready to get back on my own bike and get riding again.
Team Orange.